Good morning, everyone. I guess it's about time to start. Let's begin with a word of prayer as we begin. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we can be together as a church. We just thank you for the encouragement that we get from one another and the encouragement we get from your word. Help us to understand it. Help us to put it to work in our lives. Help us always to be faithful to you and let our lives be a sacrifice to you. These things we pray in your Son's name. Amen. Well, it's been a long time since I was up here last. My dad and I went through a bout of the flu, and we're thankful to be over that. Pop was in the hospital for 3 days, so he had it really bad. So I advise not to catch it if you can help it. I believe in our last class that I was here, I want to thank Steve Merriman for filling in for me during those last 2 weeks. And I understand he had some trouble last week, but I really thank him for doing that. We started, when I was here last, we started the subject of the tongue. And I mentioned that there are well over 100 proverbs dealing with the tongue, the lips, the mouth. So it's an important subject in the book of Proverbs. And the tongue can be used for good, and the tongue can be used for bad. In Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 11, it says, "The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but violence overwhelms the mouth of the wicked." And in verse 14 of chapter 10, "Wise men store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin." So the mouth can be a fountain of life, or it can be a source of ruin. And we're going to look at both of those subjects. I want to start off with how the mouth can be a source of ruin in our lives. The Proverbs mention several things that are the wrong way to use our mouth. I made a partial list here. Mockery, flattery, false witness, quarreling, gossip, enticement to sin, lying, boasting, cursing, slander, speaking in haste, giving full vent to our anger, and provocation. I'm sure I missed a few, but those are some of the evil ways that we can use our tongues. And I want to go through and look at some of those and see what the Proverbs have to tell us. I think one of the most terrible things that we can use our tongue for is to entice other people into evil, to lead them into evil. And the Proverbs give us a couple of examples of that. Turn to chapter 1. And we're going to read verses 10 through 19 of chapter 1. "My son, if sinners entice you, do not give in to them. If they say, 'Come along with us, let's lie in wait for someone's blood. Let's waylay some harmless soul. Let's swallow them alive like the grave, and whole like those who go down to the pit. We will get all sorts of valuable things and fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot with us, and we will share a common purse. My son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their paths. For their feet rush into sin. They are swift to shed blood. How useless to spread a net in full view of all the birds. These men lie in wait for their own blood. They waylay only themselves. Such is the end of all who go after ill-gotten gain. It takes away the lives of those who get it. Okay, these sinners are trying to entice someone into shedding blood and stealing. Why would someone try to entice someone else to join them in that? Okay. They're going to share the blame. When you're going to murder and rob someone, probably a little easier to have some help, isn't it? You don't want to take somebody on one-on-one. He might win the battle. But if you have a group that are going together to do this, it makes it easier. Well, what methods do these sinners use to entice people? How do they get people to join them? Okay, they're promising that they're going to get rich. They're going to have a good life if they can get all this stuff from these people. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to be rich and have all this stuff and won't have to work. They're promising them an easy life. Well, what aren't they telling them? Yes, Darlene? Darlene's mentioning that gangs, it's the promise of being part of a group, kind of a family that entices people to join up with. Yes? Okay. Yeah, in a way, it's a way to have friends that you share something with, but they don't tell you that this kind of life is going to end in you being in jail or you getting killed. They don't tell you that part. Yes. Oh, yes, Larry. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's all based on lies, just like the very first enticement into sin by Satan and Eve. He lied to Eve, and or half lies, and deceived her. What these people who are they thinking about? Themselves. They don't care about the people that they're hurting and killing and injuring. They're thinking about their own selfish ambitions. Well, let's look at another example of enticement, and that's over in chapter 7 of Proverbs. And we're going to read, we're going to start in verse 6. At the window of my house I looked out through the lattice. I saw among the simple, I noticed among the young men, a youth who lacked judgment. He was going down the street near her corner, walking along the direction of her house. At twilight, as the day was fading, as the dark of night set in, then out came a woman to meet him, dressed like a prostitute and with crafty intent. She is loud and defiant. Her feet never stay at home. Now in the street, now in the squares, at every corner she lurks. She took hold of him and kissed him, and with a brazen face she said, I have fellowship offerings at home. Today I fulfilled my vows, so I came out to meet you. I looked for you and have found you. I have covered my bed with colored linens from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink deep of love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love. My husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He took his purse filled with money and will not be home till full moon. With persuasive words she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. All at once he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose, till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Pay attention to what I say. Do not let your heart turn to her ways or stray into her paths. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her slain are a mighty throng. Her house is a highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death. Okay, what methods did this woman use to entice this young man? Okay. Okay. Just the beauty of the woman was an enticement. What did she do to entice him? Yes, Carl? Okay. Yeah, what are your ideas on what that means when she said she has fulfilled her vows and she has fellowship offerings at home? What? Okay. The fellowship offerings, they got to eat part of it, didn't they? So when you offer a fellowship offering, you have some left over that you can eat and have a banquet. So one of the things she's promising him is a good meal. What about the vows? I didn't understand that exactly. Any thoughts? Okay, she wasn't fasting or denying herself. Okay. Probably what? Okay. Okay, I hadn't thought about that. I was thinking of her as being an Israelite, but But that doesn't mean they didn't worship idols. There were a lot of Israelites. Yeah. That's right. And, well, she offers, I mean, she's seducing him with enjoyment, with a bed with myrrh and aloes and cinnamons. She's pointing out all these wonderful things. Yes, Art? Okay. Yeah, she's not talking about agape love, is she? Who doesn't she love? Yeah, her husband. She doesn't seem to care about her husband. Uh, no, she's just using him. And usually it's men using women, but women can use men also. Larry? Mm-hmm. So this is very similar to the first example we looked at. She's promising him pleasure. She's not caring about other people. She's not telling him the bad things that can happen because of this. If the husband finds out, it could cost the man his life. But they're not mentioning any of that. So this is one of the horrible ways we can use our tongue, is to entice people for selfish reasons to join us in evil. And I think that's probably one of the most serious. Well, let's look at another way we can, maybe we're not trying to entice people into evil, but how many of us have had a problem with gossip in our lives? Look at Proverbs 26:22. Well, that's the wrong one. Oh no, yeah, it's 22. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong number. Yeah, Proverbs 26:22. The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to a man's inmost parts. How are the words of a gossip like a choice morsel? Yes. Yeah, I can see how a whisperer could be another name for a gossip. You're telling someone secretly behind someone's back something. Larry? Mm-hmm. Okay. How is gossip like that? Do we? Yes. Okay. Beth is saying that it's pleasant to us to hear gossip because it makes us feel better about ourselves. Other people have problems bigger than ours, so yes. Okay. Okay. All right. It can fuel other problems. Yes, John? Okay. It's something that's popular. People like to hear this stuff. We have magazines devoted to gossip. We have television shows devoted to gossip about the rich and famous. It's just something that people like to hear. Yeah, as long as it's someone else. Okay. Gossip isn't always necessarily true, is it? But it can be true. Yeah, sometimes gossip is true, but sometimes it gets embellished and it's not true. Yes. Okay. All right. It's healthier to be in a marriage relationship for some people. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about how we like to hear gossip. Why do we like to tell gossip? Okay. Okay, Judy said it makes us feel important because maybe we're the first to know news. It brings us a little bit of attention to ourselves, doesn't it, when we bring news to people that they want to hear. So yes, we're going to get to that point that gossip hurts people, doesn't it? Look at Proverbs 11:9. With his mouth, the godless destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge, the righteous escape. Gossip can hurt people, can it? What are some examples that you've heard of that how gossip has hurt someone? Yes, Mary. Okay. Yeah, I just read about a suicide this morning on the internet, and it's usually like teenagers. that are being gossiped about, and with the internet and with telephones and texting and all that, it's worse than ever, and gossip spreads faster than ever. And teenagers, I think, are more vulnerable than we are. We get a little tougher as we get older, maybe, but it still hurts us, doesn't it? But I read about a girl that all these people were gossiping about her over the internet, and it finally got to the point where she couldn't take it anymore and killed herself. Very, very sad. So gossip is something, we may like to hear it, we may like to tell it, but we have to restrain ourselves, because this is something that hurts others, and it's not a loving thing to do. Beth and then Ben. Okay. And people may like to hear gossip from you, but are they going to think more of you in the long run if you're always gossiping? They're going to be a little afraid of talking about you. Just a second, Ben. I read the biography of Samuel Johnson, which was written by Boswell, and he would remember everything that people said and write it down in his book. And it got to be where people were afraid to talk around him, and so that kind of hurt his life and alienated him from a lot of people, because he would write the embarrassing things that they said and incidents in their life. Ben? Okay. All right. Yeah, gossiping isn't the whole story. Right. There's not everything true about you don't want the rest of the world to know about, do you? So, yes, Tony? Okay, Tony's saying that there are times when we need to make things known that are dangerous, maybe a danger to our children, or someone needs help. But that calls for wisdom. We don't just spread it around carelessly. We have to do it for the right, loving reasons, and that calls for wisdom. Ida? Okay. 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 Ida is saying that her sister is still being hurt by gossip that happened 65 years ago. So sometimes doesn't die down, Larry. Okay, the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But ask yourself, would you want someone telling that about you? And that'd be good. Yes. That's right. So gossip can be true or false, but in either case, it can be hurtful to the person. Yes. Yeah. Doesn't make it good. Okay. 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 That's a good parable. Okay, yes. Okay. Yeah, if we give a good ear to gossip, then we're encouraging it. But if we just refuse to listen to gossip, then that sends a message to the person that's trying to tell you the gossip that you don't want to participate in that. And that's a good message to send. Yes. I wonder how thick the National Enquirer would be if they used that standard. That's right, Ben, and then Darlene. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Yeah, it kind of goes back to that those enticements that we looked about. They were all done for selfish reasons, not thinking about the welfare of others. And gossip is the same thing. We're doing it for selfish reasons and not thinking about the welfare of others. Darlene? Okay. Go to the person that's being gossiped about and try to work it out there. Not. Okay. Yeah. In all these situations, think about what's best for the person involved, the gossiper or the gossipee. If you're not going to the person that it's about, then you don't know whether it's true or not. And those are all really good points. Well, we have about 5 minutes. I'll get into the next section, quarreling. Have you ever had a trouble with quarreling? Look at Proverbs chapter 17. And verse 14. We mentioned this verse in an earlier class, but I think it's a good one to introduce the subject of quarreling. Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, so drop the matter before a dispute breaks out. The idea of breaching a dam is water starts flowing through a crack in a dam, and it erodes the dam away until it's finally a huge flood. And quarreling can do the same thing, can it? I was reading about World War I in my encyclopedia, and it was talking about the cause of World War I, and I wrote down a couple of sentences that I thought applied to this subject of quarreling that were thought to be the cause of World War I. Nationalistic pride caused nations to magnify small disputes into major issues. A minor complaint could thus quickly lead to the threat of war. So World War I started with minor disputes. It escalated into an assassination of a duke, and the country that duke was from used that as an excuse to go to war with the country that the assassin was from. Then all the other countries of Europe jumped in and took sides, and the results were 9 million soldiers were killed, 21 million soldiers were wounded, and possibly the same number of civilians died as soldiers. So you're talking about 20 million people dying and countless people wounded and all of the destruction that took place in World War I because of a dispute that escalated. So how do we keep that from happening? Cindy? That's right. Just drop the matter quickly is what one of the Proverbs says. What you were saying about trying to intervene and help, there's a proverb about that. Look at Proverbs 26 and verse 17. Oh, yeah. Look at Proverbs 26:17. Like one who seizes a dog by the ears is a passerby who meddles in a quarrel not his own. What happens if you seize a dog by his ears? Okay, you're going to get bit. And they're saying that if you interfere in a quarrel that's not your own, that you're going to get bit. I read one time that the police say that one of the most dangerous situations they ever get in is when they try to intervene in a domestic dispute. They'll go, there's a big fight going on, and they intervene, and the couple that are fighting both turn on the policeman, and they say a lot of policemen get hurt in that situation. Okay. Yeah, we have to keep our emotions under control. If there's not two people fighting, the fight or quarrel has a tendency to die down, doesn't it? Al? Okay. Look at Proverbs 15. We'll make this the last one. I think our time's up. Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And if you want to see a good example of that, read the story of Rehoboam. When Solomon had died and Rehoboam became the king, the people came to him and asked him to ease up a little on him, that Solomon had been pretty hard on him. And Rehoboam listened to some bad advice and gave them a harsh answer. And what was the outcome of that? Yeah, he wasn't king of 10 of the tribes. They seceded from the union and became their own kingdom. And so we can learn from the examples in the scriptures. And I guess we better stop there. I think, one more comment, Sheila? Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, we are called to be peacemakers, but I guess that calls for wisdom too. How do you intervene to be a peacemaker without getting involved in the quarrel itself? Well, thank you for your comments, and we'll take up there next week.